What's going on with Gaza? Is this a real deal? We see President Trump being chummy with Qatar, and we're confused. We're all confused, right? As like, is this something that's going to lead really? There's another threat against Hamas. 48 hours, hell will break loose. Is this starting to become like a joke, or is it real? Is there a plan here, or is it just kind of back to the same old, same old? Somebody who really has a great grip on the happenings of the Middle East is Dan Diker, who is the president of the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs and a longtime director of the Counter-Political Warfare Project. He previously served as Secretary General of the World Jewish Congress and is widely published analyst on Middle East affairs, BDS, and the politics of delegitimization. That's right. So Dan Diker joins us today. Shalom and welcome to the show, Dan. Let's start with Gaza, Dan Diker. Is this a real deal or is this a joke? And really, people are confused. Honestly, people are like, on the one hand, people are like, look, Trump has done a lot of things. He helped Israel bomb Iran. He seems to be forcing the Qataris to force the Hamas to give up the hostages. There seems to be good stuff there. On the other hand, international forces in Gaza, is that really something that we want? Is Hamas becoming empowered again? I just spoke to a soldier today. He's like, yeah, they're walking around with Kalashnikovs. We see them all the time. Or are they actually going to relinquish their weapons? Is this thing real? Is Israel going to be safer at the end of this process?
Well, that's the key question, Yishai. And it seems that anybody who knows something about Hamas and Islamic political warfare and political culture knows that there's only one force that can, by force, bring Hamas to heel, to disarm, to demilitarize, and that's the IDF, Israel Defense Forces. You notice that today people are making a big deal of the fact that Egyptian bulldozers have come in to Gaza on the nominal task of recovering bodies and clearing the pathway towards distributing humanitarian aid. We might notice that Egypt is not bringing one armed soldier into Gaza, and neither is any other Arab armed force, because there is no Arab armed force or any other international force other than the United States, which has already said it is not going to put boots on the ground, that could possibly disarm Hamas. So on that level, you asked the question, is this real or is this fake? Well, it's very real to assess that Hamas, as the precursor to Al-Qaeda, as an Islamic jihadist organization, they live and die by the sword and the rifle. So there is no way that they are going to they are going to commit suicide as an Islamic organization, lay down their arms. That's who they are. That's why they live, and that's why they call themselves martyrs. So what we're witnessing here, Yishai, is the price that is being paid for freeing the remaining 20 live hostages, getting the Arab and Muslim countries to sign on to that. It's not even. It's a pact. It's not even an agreement. There is no. And you're an international lawyer. There is no international legal mechanism to enforce this temporary, what we call in Middle Eastern terms, in Islamic terms, a hudna, which is a temporary ceasefire in Islamic terms until Hamas rearms, re-energizes, resupplies, and can then attack from a much stronger position. That's where we are. And anybody that tells you that Hamas is going to lay down its arms, or that the UAE, Saudi, or any of or even Indonesia is going to send special forces in there to force Hamas to its knees, is just living in an alternate reality.
Okay, so what do you make of this language that we've now heard? I'm starting to think it's starting to sound a little funny. This Trumpian language of all hell will be let loose, or the gates of hell, that kind of stuff. It's kind of starting to sound a little redundant and a little like, it's in Middle East terms. It's like you use that thread a few too many times. It starts to sound like you don't really mean it. So how do you make of, what do you make of that? Remember that we had with Iran, he gave him 60 days. On the 61st day they bombed. Are these ultimatums real, or is it something or is it what's it called, lip service, that is just there to kind of make us believe that they're being tough, but in fact they're passing it. They're letting them rearm, and they're bringing Qatar in, Turkey in, and therefore Hamas is going to be stronger tomorrow. In short, what do you make of the Trumpian threats?
Well, Trump has kept his word in the past. I mean, he said the same thing to the Iranian regime, that I'm going to give you 60 days, and then he gave Israel the green light, and the United States mobilized B-2 bombers to blow out the nuclear program at Fordo, Isfahan, uh, uh, and one other site. Um, uh, so he does keep his word. I think that the army that's going to do the dirty work is only the IDF. So I think he's basically planning on letting Israel continue its what we call low, medium, and even high intensity warfare against Hamas. Let's be very clear that Hamas today is divided into two. There's to use New York City terms, there's the east side and the west side of Gaza. The east side being controlled by Israel and the United States up to what they call the yellow line, which is quite deep into Gaza with a topographical advantage. And then Hamas controls still the west side of Gaza. And Gaza is only 2,200 square kilometers, so it's a very small strip. But I think we can take President Trump at his word. I don't know if it's going to be a pure 48 hours, but I think judging by the Iranian regime, the attack on the Iranian regime by Israel and the United States, I think we can take Trump seriously. The question is going to be whether it's going to happen literally after 48 hours. And it's going to be much more difficult than people think it is. Israel's been at war with Hamas for 2 years. They still have 50% of the 500 miles of terror tunnels active. And let's be very clear: the Hamas has up to 20,000 fighters, some of them only teenagers, 16, 17, 18, but they're filling the ranks. They've got plenty of weaponry. We know IDF assessment from just a few days ago revealed that there are 6 divisions and 24 platoons, and they've got plenty of weaponry left. So there's lots to destroy when it comes to Hamas. And this whole international force, this technocratic government, international force, that's more lip service than it is reality. At the end of the day, it's going to be Israel that's going to force Hamas to disarm and carry out demilitarization. No other force is prepared to do it. They're not going to. They're simply not going to confront the Hamas. But I do think that President Trump is serious. I think what we really need to pay attention to is that from President Trump's point of view, Gaza is an annoyance towards achieving his regional goal. Regional goal has 2 major aspects. One, the Trump vision for a secure, stable, and prosperous Middle East with Saudi Arabia leading. That's a really big vision for President Trump. We saw that vision playing out in May 2020 and 2025 when he took a trip to the Gulf and he came back with promises of a few $trillion in business for the United States. So that vision is real, but it's a vision, and Hamas is not a vision. Hamas is a very stark terror reality on the ground. The other aspect of this, Yishai, that we really have to mention, it's the elephant in the room. That's called the Trump and Arab partner allies support for the establishment of a Palestinian state. That is a very dangerous component that is real, and it is a demand made by Trump's Arab and Islam and Muslim partners and allies that they made a condition to signing on to the Trump 20-point plan. And I think that is going to bring to bear a lot of pressure on Israel as part of this regional vision. It's very dangerous because better than anyone in the neighborhood that any kind of sovereign, independent, additional Palestinian entity is going to be a platform that could lead to the next October 7th, God forbid, and it has to be rejected at all costs.
Okay, so you're saying that Palestinian statehood is somewhere in the offing here. It's a subtext here. You get a sense of that on the one hand, you think that's absurd. How could October 7th, which is an outcropping of us giving away land to some kind of quasi-Palestinian state, it led to this terror attack? How could it lead to more Palestinian state, more land giveaway? But that is a subtext, and that's certainly what the international community wants to see. The Europeans, especially, they're pushing for that. And you used the word about,
because they misunderstand. Yishai, I just want to say make one point. Just that there's a very you basically led to a very important point. The West has believed, much to its peril, and in an ill-advised way, that what we are witnessing from October 7th on is a climax of an extreme expression of what they think is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. That conflict, as it was laid out for the last almost 3.5 decades, was made to present itself as a political, territorial conflict given to territorial and political compromise solution. That is false. That is ill-advised. That is a mistake. We are witnessing, and Israel is facing jihad, Islamic warfare, fight to the death, religiously and ideologically charged warfare against the Jews, against Christians, against Western civilization. And that is an uncomfortable reality for the West, for Western civilization to accept, because the West is very solutionist oriented. How do you figure it out? Do you cut it down the middle? They're not in the West, particularly the United States, and in I would say post-church Europe, not used to an ideological war against the West. And this is an ideological war against a Western democracy called the State of Israel. It's also a war against the West. We see Iran has been assassinating people in the United Kingdom. There have been more than 20 attempted assassinations in the last year and a half alone. We see Iranian regime terror proxies throughout Europe. We see Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas's mother organization, penetrating the United States. We see, murders and assassinations from yelling Allahu Akbar, God is great, in the Arabic idiom, killing 2 young people from the Israeli embassy and others in the United States. This is a religious war, and it is not given to territorial compromise. That is the fundamental shift of thinking, Yishai, that we must help our American friends to understand, because all the territorial and political compromises in the world that actually took place during Oslo. I mean, Israel under 2 very left progressive prime ministers, Ehud Barak, who became a progressive, who began as a military centrist but became a progressive when he became prime minister. He basically offered the entire house to the Palestinians. They rejected the so-called Palestinians. And the same thing with Ehud Olmert. So it's not an issue of territory or political compromise. It's an issue that requires Israel and the West to defeat wholly these jihadistic adversaries, enemies. And it's very uncomfortable for the West to consider such a situation in which there is only winners and losers in the Middle East. There is no such thing as compromise the way there is in the West. It's considered weakness, it's considered concession, and it is intolerable to the Middle Eastern political cultural reality.
Okay, Dan. That is, I can't agree more with that. I want you to know that I bumped into the German ambassador here in Israel. He was speaking at the JPOS conference. I saw you there as well. And he said some stuff, and sometimes when you're dealing with German ambassadors and German government folks, it gets your hairs up on the back of your neck, and you get angry. I went up to him afterwards. I said to him, "Listen, you're calling for Palestinian statehood, but October 7th was was as I said before, was an outcropping of us giving land away. And it led to jihadist control of a piece of land and a war against us. I'm like, how could you come to the conclusion that doing the same formula is going to yield something better if we give away Judea and Samaria to a Palestinian state? So he said to me, well, that's your outlook. Your outlook is that whenever you give away land, it's going to become a jihad place. I said to him, that's not my outlook. That's my experience. That's the fact. But he wouldn't have it. And he really, you could see that we had a very diplomatic but tense moment there. In any case, so that was to explain the point that you were talking about. But I want to shift gears for a second and talk to you for a second as a New Yorker or as a former New Yorker. Two New York issues that I want to bring up, okay? The first New York issue is the CBS interview of Kushner and Witkoff. Kushner and Witkoff go on CBS, and instead of praising Netanyahu, as did Trump, calling him a great wartime leader, they rip him hard, and they say we felt betrayed, and basically try to paint Israel as a little bit of an out of control child, where they're the grown-ups and they're the mothers, and the father is Qatar, right? They're like, well, the Qataris are actually they're actually agents of peace and negotiation, and the Israelis are out of control. I could not believe that interview. What was that about? Was that, on the face of it, it just seemed like two guys that are in the pocket of Saudi Arabia and Qatar, ripping on Prime Minister Netanyahu, even though they're Jews, New York Jews. Maybe they had some ulterior motive to try to mollify their Qatari friends, but it was very hard to swallow. So what did you think of that? How did you understand that interview?
Well, when it was on the CBS network, but let's bear in mind the program 60 Minutes is one of the most veteran watched, seriously taken programs on American news magazine, in American news magazine broadcast. So it was, very, very high rating program in which Witkoff and Kushner, sort of laid out their Torah, if you will, and they, I think, in an ill-advised way, they were criticizing Israel, because the way they were criticizing Israel was basically to create moral equivalence between Hamas and Israel. How? Witkoff told the story on 60 Minutes about meeting. He wouldn't name him as Hamas leader. He said the leader of that organization. Or he used nomenclature that did not mention the Hamas, but he was referring clearly, directly to Khalil al-Hayya, who was supposed to have been assassinated by Israel in Qatar. It was missed, and here they are negotiating directly with a Hamas leader. Could you imagine if the United States was negotiating with Osama bin Laden or his henchmen directly after 9/11? I mean, it's unthinkable. So what they did was, by Witkoff telling that story about meeting Khalil al-Hayya in Egypt and sharing with the Hamas leader that Witkoff, had a son, Andrew, who died tragically, and sent his condolences to al-Hayya. I mean, it's almost, you can't make this up. And the reason he did that was to say, I think, in typically, American humanistic terms, we're all people. Like, ideology doesn't matter. Your determination to destroy Israel, and the Jewish people, by the way, according to the Hamas 1988 charter itself, where people are welcome to check out what we're saying here, as well as taking on Western civilization. The Muslim Brotherhood, which is the global mother organization of the Hamas, has targeted the United States for subversion. And here is Steve Witkoff's special envoy of the United States, creating a legitimacy for Hamas, which basically paves the way for the next Hamas terror attack against America and against Israel with impunity, because they've just had a major upgrade. That stood out in my mind as I watched the 60-minute interview. And the second issue, the second observation that these guys made, was that Witkoff said they felt betrayed by Israel when we went after the Hamas leadership in Qatar. These types of comments only strengthen the Hamas's determination to carry out terror attacks, and doesn't do anything else. And there has to be zero daylight between Israel and the United States in order for both countries to beat radical Islamic terror. This notion that Witkoff and Kushner say that the Hamas that Gazans and Palestinian Arabs in Judea and Samaria that voted overwhelmingly for October 7th and Hamas, all they want to do is live normal lives. This is the kind of language that he used in the interview. Is just simply ignores the political cultural reality of Hamas as a radical Islamic organization, and it undermines the Israel American alliance in trying to stamp out everyone from the Iranian regime to Hamas, Hezbollah, the PLO, the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine, and other Marxist, Leninist, and Islamist organizations. You cannot try to play both sides, as I think our friends from the United States. And I will say that Witkoff and Kushner are very well-meaning. They're very intelligent people, but we've got to understand there is no such thing as playing both sides. Either you're with Israel and you're with the cause of freedom, liberty, democracy, or you're not. And I think that this is one of the object lessons that we have got to help our American friends understand. Otherwise, this Islamic terrorism is going to, continue. They're going to strengthen, and that is exactly what's happening in Gaza. And certainly, and I'll end with this: the Hamas's key strategy is to prevent the normalization of relations between Israel, Saudi Arabia, the United States. So they're actually the Americans are actually working against themselves by creating this false moral equivalence and legitimizing the Hamas.
Okay, I'm not going to pry anymore into Witkoff, Kushner, and their motivations. Your points are well made, but there was a second New York question I promised you, and the second New York question is
Mamdani.
Well, that's right. But the preamble to Mamdani is that anybody who understands American Jewry knows that the beating heart of American Jewry is the city of New York. The city of New York is not just a city; it's built partially by Jewish ability and Jewish wealth, and the culture of the city itself has Jewishness just intertwined with Judaism, with the slang, with the you see Jews in the city, just like you see Chinese people or black people, you see Jewish people. It's just part and parcel of what New York City is about. And it doesn't matter how strong Los Angeles or Chicago or Miami or Toronto in Canada is. At the end of the day, the heart of North American Jewry is the New York City area. It's New Jersey, Connecticut, but New York City and Brooklyn and Queens, etc., and Long Island, of course. Now there's this very real threat of Mamdani. To me, I want to ask you, like, how serious is this threat? And is this the end of the golden age of American Jewry? What's American Jewry to do? Is New York City going down? In short, what is the threat of Mamdani? What is the realistic threat? And does it represent a certain end of a great era?
All very important questions. And in fact, I personally was shocked to learn that 20% of the Jewish vote in the Democratic Party was going to Mamdani, and they simply are ignoring the fact that this guy, Bowdoin graduate, well-spoken, handsome, articulate, is a Hamas loyalist, and he cancels out publicly the reality of the nation state of the Jewish people, just doesn't accept it. So he basically has taken on the PLO position on Israel, which is that Israel is an implant and doesn't deserve any legitimacy. And I think that we're talking about an American Jew. We're talking about an American Jewish community 70% of which votes Democrat, maybe between 70 and 75. And Mamdani represents for them a type of progressive voice that they, in their own mind, they divorce from anything else, including Israel. I think certainly young American Jews from 35 and under have become more demonstratively what they call pro-Palestinian. I mean, that's a term that we have to unpack, because essentially when you say you're pro-Palestinian and you agree with declarations like Mamdani makes, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, globalize the intifada. Anybody who knows something about the Middle East knows that globalize the intifada doesn't only mean kill Jews wherever they are, but it also means subvert the United States. This is exactly what Professor Hatem Bazian from Berkeley and now from Zaytuna University, which is a sub university within the Berkeley campus structure. This is what they've been calling for years. This is Students for Justice in Palestine. All of them are pro Hamas. They're not pro Palestinian. Does not mean today that these people, including the Jews, favor a truncated Palestinian state in the what they call the post 1967 territories in Judea and Samaria. They don't even hold that. They are in Mamdani favors the replacement of Israel with this notion of a mystical Palestinian state that's never existed, that the Palestinian people are not even demonstrating to create a Palestinian state. We have to go back to the declarations of Arafat, Mahmoud Abbas, and Hamas. All of them share the same strategic goal: replacing Israel with what they call Palestine. And this is a very Soviet idea of universal justice in their mind, but it involves destroying the Jewish state. This is what Mamdani believes. Doesn't matter how cute he sounds or how educated his Bowdoin education presents him, but that is what he believes. And I think that New York is going into a very dangerous. This guy's a communist. He believes he doesn't believe in the capitalist idea. He certainly. It is absolutely bizarre that he may become the mayor of the most populous Jewish city in the world outside of Israel, the center of America, the castle of American capitalism, entrepreneurialism, American ingenuity, the American financial centers in New York. And that is why Osama bin Laden hit New York in 2001. So I see Mamdani in a way as a continuation of Osama bin Laden, but in Brooks Brothers clothing. That's the only real, serious difference. And it's very, very dangerous because you'll find a lot of money will leave New York. And as a friend of mine said, who knows Hamas and jihadism very well, Qatar and Turkey will fill that financial void with lots and lots of money and companies. They will not let Mamdani fail. So you'll see the replacement of civilizational capital, let's call it that way, that will flee New York, and you'll see, I think, even more Qatari ownership, equity, buying power by the billions coming into New York.
Wow, I didn't know about that last part. That's a fascinating. Boy, those Qataris are smart. I gotta give it to them, right? They really know how to play the game out there. They're strategic. People always say they're rich. Yeah, but they have a strategic mindset also. They really have a strategic mindset and a strategic goal. They know how to make strategic partners as well. And they've been working on the universities, et cetera, for a long time. And they've reached what they've reached. But really, this could spell the end of New York City as we understand it, and therefore the end of American Jewry, or at least the passing the golden point, certainly, and the weakening of American Jewry from here on. And I guess the Jewish state is the protectorate, the place that we go to continue the story of the Jewish people in this time. Dan Diker, I want to thank you so much for being with us, and keep up the great work at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. You've also been a longtime director of the Counter Political Warfare Project there. what used to be called JCPA. Now it's got a different name, Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. And you've done a lot of good work on BDS, politics of delegitimization, and generally Middle East affairs. Thank you so much for being with us late in the night tonight.
Enjoy every moment, and we really should have a whiskey, at this time of a nightcap, what's called a nightcap. But hope we have many, and you're doing wonderful work too, Yishai. The movie you did with our mutual friend Mossab Hassan Yusuf, The Green Prince, is a wonderful little documentary that I just watched myself, and very moving. Got a lot of great feedback from people far and wide on that. And this is the war that we're in, the war for legitimacy, the war for historical and legal rights of the Jewish people. And we're in a critical moment right now where the argument is not over borders, it's not over politics, it's over the existence of Israel, the Jewish people's right to 3,600-year-old sovereignty in our historic homeland. We have to keep fighting for that. It's not a theological issue, it's an existential issue. And we face together a very bitter enemy that is, determined to end is national Jewish life as we know it. And we have a lot of work to do. If the president of the United States, a great, great friend of the Jewish people in Israel, sits with the Qatari leadership on Air Force One as it is refueling in Qatar, we really have to understand how serious that type of imagery is and share with our American friends what we need to do in order to come out ahead and win this war.
The war for legitimacy, and legitimacy equals security in the end. People don't understand that formula, but when you're not legitimate, you don't have
Absolutely.
security. You can't fight. Your hands are tied behind your back. When you're legitimate, the playing field is yours. You can do whatever you want to do to take care of business. And we are definitely in an existential battle, as you say, for the legitimacy of the Jewish state, the state of Israel. Dan Diker, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks so much, Yishai. God bless.
And enjoy that nightcap, all right?
All right. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right, folks. Dan Diker, amazing person that we have on today. And he's check out their work at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. They're doing a lot of great work out there and fighting that war for legitimacy, as we're talking about right now.